on the market, yes, that could be done every time you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Some people, the thing that's going to be a problem, I think, is that when we can't find it, right? Got a positive blood test. Sure, it could be false positive, which is we worry, but what happens if you can't find it, right? Well, that's going to happen, and some are going to be false positives, but I just tell you, people are thinking ahead here. And what can we do that was our dream, wasn't it? Early detection and prevention. I do believe that we're going to have molecules which are available right now that cause a 15% weight loss in about 3 months. Now, my colleagues on the right here will tell you that when you do gastric bypass surgery on people, then in the first 3 years, and they can hit me over here, but first 3 years, the incidence of cancer in those people go down by 30%. We don't quite understand, but we think that maybe glucagon-like peptide, it's many hormones, but it's pretty dramatic. But not everybody in the room here would want to have a gastric bypass. I probably need one, but I don't really want one if I don't have to have it, right? Right. But you're gonna see these GLP-1. Sometimes they're advertised on TV like Ozempic, right? You might have heard that. But there's some better ones coming, and the new ones coming down the line are going to cause a 15% decrease in weight. Remember, Christian said that inflammation, fat, our organs get more fat around them as we age. Fat is the greatest inflammatory agent in the world, causes lots of inflammation, which drives cancer like crazy. Insulin drives cancer. So I just want to point out that, so we find it, so now what do we do? If we couldn't find anything, we say, well, Dan, you could lose a few pounds. Well, that's easier said than done. And I do believe that just like we're on cholesterol-lowering agents, we are going to be on these GLP-1 antagonists, which are basically non-toxic. We're going to lose weight. Our type 2 diabetes is going to go away. We're going to get that blood test again. And we're going to see whether or not it's still positive. That's if you go through a scan, can't find anything. Right. We have to put an X on the place where to operate, Doug, right? Yeah. Okay. Other comments there? Okay. Yes, sir. Dr. Hussain. Hahn. Dr. Hahn?
Yes, Dr. Hahn? I work with Dr. Hussain right next to you. We're talking about immunotherapies and your new techniques on opening up the tumors. Is that available yet? Off-label? Is it something you can do to patients yet?
Well, maybe Dr. Von Hoff can answer that more specifically, but right now, it's still in early stage clinical trials. It's in Europe. It's not been opened in the U.S. yet. So maybe, Dan, you want to add on to that?
It's been trialed at the Royal Marsden. There have been 12 patients treated there. We're working like crazy to get it here. The machine. There are two things when you're using, first of all, the nice thing, this is not an investigational drug, but every new device, not true for the bed back there, by the way, but every new device that we utilize in people have to be approved by the FDA, and each component has to be looked at. Believe it or not, the device is being built in Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah, which is interesting. So this is pretty dramatic effect, and we're spot on. These molecules, the immune, are real big, and anything we can do to get them into the tumor would be appreciated, right? So that's... I think it's going to be, if we're lucky, I'll just tell you that the COVID hurt because the person who was the inventor wasn't able to get to the United States to start teaching us how to do it. But we have everybody ready to go. I think it's still going to be by the end of the year. I'm an optimist, but I hope it's by then. Otherwise, we don't want to all go to England to get it. Right? Yeah, exactly.
The second question I have is about the mouse study. I was signed up for it at COVID in Newport 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, after signing my life away for the clinical trial, I got put into the emergency room. So my health went, and all that went out the door. And I had the chaplain following me around for days, and I couldn't figure out who was telling me about going to the hospice too early. Well, they were following me around, and I kept on looking at them like, what are you doing here?
Not yet. Yeah. Yes, they have. First patient's been treated. Urquhart hopes to be, he's going to be the principal investigator here. Yeah. It's open, USC and Hoag right now. Thanks to Roger. You bet. Great questions. Question?
Yes, hi. Curious on the criteria to be involved in the clinical trial, and do you have to be an honored health patient for that, or what is that really look like?
Why don't you go ahead and get a microphone? Urquhart can probably best answer that.
So for the intratumoral injection trial, again, we're fortunate we have our nurse navigators here, but this particular trial is currently at Hoag, and also we can give you the information on the clinicaltrials.gov, so it's registered there. But yes, anyone could reach out through there, and we can certainly facilitate that too if there's any interest.
I think it's a deeper question, too, is that some people think you have to be an Olympic athlete, to get on the clinical trials, right? That's one of the things. And so everybody's pushing to make it more, I would say probably the best way to put it is more typical of a person who would present. And there's a lot of people working on trying to get that to be the case. With a brand new technique, you can see why people wouldn't want it, because it'd be too risky for people. And one thing, like performance status, for example, when somebody calls and says, gee, I really would like to have something, Gail would, or Joyce Schaefer over there, say, how much of the day is the person spending out of bed? We have this thing called performance status, right? So 100 is going to work every day at the mattress firm. Maybe, but sometimes you walk in, you say, I don't know, maybe they're an 80, right? But no matter what, sorry, that didn't sound too well. But 100 is perfect, right? And 0 is dead. And how do when we call Susan and say we have a person that would be a good surgical possibility, we got the tumor shrunk and we're ready to go, the way that we communicate with each other and their performance status is. And Dr. Gordon over there will tell you that's really the greatest determinant. If you're not up and around 70% of the day or better, I can tell you that you'll do more harm than good in general going on a trial. And that's important too. We sometimes, because people need guidance. And I've been in the room many times when Joyce has said, you love your father a lot, but he's in bed all the time. That means that anything that we would give him would make him worse. So that's a good goal, because you all speak to so many people. But that's not a bad, and people kind of generally know, but one thing for sure, you don't want to do something that's not going to be in the person's best interest. So that's kind of what we use as a criteria. And it's amazing over all these years that that's to the best, and it's kind of common sense, right? But it's a good criteria. But you're right, we try to broaden that patient population as best we can. And I don't think anybody realizes how much a clinical trial really costs, right, because of the tremendous monitoring. It's about $100,000 per person. It's amazingly expensive. I just want to tell you the first doses of Abraxane, that was, just for the small trial, was $10 million. Well, you're making stuff, and some of the new biologics, Peter will tell you, these things are incredibly difficult to make, right? Really difficult to make. That's not what's taken into consideration. We want the things that are going to work the best, right? No question about that. So I understand that Dr. Tomasetti is saying, well, okay, we're going to keep the cost low, but hell, if I have a test that's really going to detect cancer of all kinds, I'm willing, if it's good quality control, I'm going to be willing to say, boy, that'd be a good use of our tax dollars together, wouldn't it? Sure save a lot of suffering. Another question. Yes. Survivor Reg.
But the funny thing that happened was like I kind of got kicked out of the oncologist's office. They were like, okay, like no more scans, no more, you'll come in and get blood work and we don't really need to see you and you're good and we don't really know what to do with you from here. And the long-term survivorship piece of it, there's so much, and I think you guys have talked about it, quality of life and everything from neuropathy to later GI issues and things like that. But my question is, what is recommended after that 5-year point in terms of maintenance and surveillance and what should we be doing? There's a lot of long-term survivors in the room, thank God, but I think that we all fall into that category of now, are we sitting and waiting for another something to pop up, or should we be proactive, and how do we approach our medical team about this issue? So, thank you.
Great comment, very difficult to answer, so we're going to ask one of our very intelligent MIT graduates down here. Susan is volunteering to try to answer. It's a serious question, and thank God we got more people that we will be able to follow. Susan.
I feel like I'm getting a lot of credit for being an MIT grad. That was a long time ago, I just have to say. So thank you for your comment and your question. Maybe I could just say something about your comment first. I think we all recognize, especially in the last 2 years, we need to serve our underserved populations better. There probably can be no higher calling at this point than to allow us to reach out to all the underserved populations that are unable to access some of the great care that has been talked about today. So even yesterday, actually, in our we have a 6:30 meeting. You know, the surgeons like to torture everyone else. So we have a 6:30 meeting on Friday morning where we talk about all of our trial patients and upcoming research. And one of the things we talked about was a grant proposal that was going in to look at how we can access the underserved population. And part of that is to understand and meet people where they are. Even last week, we were fortunate to have Jennifer Sang, who's the chair of Boston University Department of Surgery, come and talk. And she's actually dedicated